There's now a way to contact the Wolf Connection podcast. Send us an email to podcast@wolfconnection.org with your comments, questions, and guest ideas for Stephen and myself. You may hear your question answered on an upcoming podcast. Thank you for your support, and howls to you all. Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Kalfa. Let's talk about some wolves. Really excited. Morning time for me, afternoon for Stephen, and in the evening time for our first international guest. She is coming to us from Barcelona, Spain. She has a master's in multiple sciences. She's now a PhD student at the University of Oviedo. I think I got that correct, in northern Spain. And she is really focusing on the acoustic communication of wolves, both in North America and in Spain as well. We welcome Barbara Marti to the podcast. Barbara, thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us. How are you doing over there?
Fine. Thank you for having me.
No, this has been this is great. It's been such a long process because we've been in communication for quite some time. And it's just really great to be able to finally get to meet you and we both read through your research last night, or the articles that you sent us. And it's just really fascinating what you and your team are doing. Just describe how you got involved in wanting to study this specific aspect of wolves in general.
Yeah, so it kind of came along. I wasn't focused on doing wolf communication, but I started more with tech work, with non-invasive stuff like camera traps and scat collection. And then after a couple of years of work, I met a good colleague of mine now that had his PhD in wolf communication. And I was willing to do my master's thesis. So I started going through ideas with him. And then I started with wolf communication.
So what are some of the things that you have discovered? Because I want to dive right into this because it really is a fascinating topic. So just tell everyone, you studied wolves that were in the International Wolf Center, captive wolves in Minnesota, and you also studied wolves that were in this, again, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, the CLIFRF in Spain, which I believe are also captive wolves, but they had yearlings and breeding pairs. So what were the main differences that you found when studying?
We found that Minnesota wolves, although having less wolves in the center, howled more often during an hour. And wolves in Spain howled less. And also, since we were studying the spontaneous vocal activity, we saw that wolves in Minnesota had a peak in their activity patterns at sunrise, and wolves at the Spanish Center had activity patterns peaking at sunset. So that were the main differences.
And what seemed to be the reason for that difference?
Yeah, so since we are studying captive wolves, we always have in mind that captive wolves are not, it's not the same to study captive wolves and wild wolves. It could be due to how they care about the animals in the center, if they greet them in the morning, if they greet them in the afternoon. So that could also, limit our data or change our data. We can say that studying wolves in captivity always has this problem.
Yeah, because what I've noticed too, just reading through your work, is that this is really the first comprehensive study that has studied communication for 24 hours a day consecutively. Because I know you had mentioned and cited a lot of other studies that were done prior to this one that really they were limited to daylight and human bodies that were able to be on site. And it was mostly 10 to 12 hours, give or take. So this is really the first immersive 24-hour study to find out why they're communicating and how. So in that vein of what Stephen was saying with captive wolves, and I saw that too, about people greeting them, and that might be why they're howling. Do you think with the wild wolves that they want to not howl as much for predatory reasons or for human reasons? What were some of the things that you might have found?
Yeah, so that was one possibility. If the difference with Spanish wolves, because we found that they were howling less than Minnesota wolves. That could be due to predatory factors like avoiding people, and they would howl less during daylight. So the militant would avoid vocal activity patterns. But
and what's the go ahead.
Yeah.
So what's the main difference between the wolves in North America and the wolves in Spain? Because I know they're labeled different subspecies. So what's physically the difference? What behaviorally? What are the main differences that you all found?
But you mean in the study or in general?
I think in general, but also during the study.
Yeah, maybe even the genealogy of the Spanish wolf and how historical context of where they came from and how they came to be.
Yeah, so wolves in the Spanish Peninsula are isolated from the rest of the European wolves. And so they created this subspecies that is slightly smaller and have some physical patterns like stripes in the legs, and they are slightly lighter than others. They have different color patterns, not very obvious color differences, but mainly smaller because of our landscape flora is smaller, so they can hide better.
That actually brings up a question that I had because, and I'll apologize for asking very basic questions, but you are the first guest we've had outside of North America, so I'm fascinated by the basics. But just in a general sense, I can assume a portion of our listeners might not be too familiar with the Iberian Peninsula. What are the major predator-prey dynamics? What does the topography look like? What's the climate like? Where are these wolves living?
Yeah, so you have to keep in mind that Spain is very, very populated. We have less bigger areas than you have, so they really live along us. We have packs of wolves living 300 meters away from houses.
Wow.
Or from livestock farms. So we have a lot of problems with coexistence here too. And they are very, very persecuted. I know it's also in the States, but imagine we have them right in our backyard, So that is a huge difference. They live very, very close to people and avoid them. They are shyer here than, when I was in Yellowstone, well, you could see them and they would walk. They are shy, but they walk close to you and pass them to in Spain, that is very, very rare. You don't have this. They really, really avoid humans.
So in that, what Stephen was asking too, in that peninsula, what kind of weather are they dealing with? Are they getting snow? Is it in the northern part of Spain? Is it on the coast? What are these wolves dealing with just naturally on a daily basis?
And their prey base, I'm interested in as well.
So they eat a lot of livestock here, and that's why we have a lot of conflict too. But in other areas, they can eat roe deer, red deer. Um, they can have wild boar, and in other specific areas that are more agriculture, they also eat. How do you say bunnies?
Oh, rabbits.
Rabbits. Yeah, rabbits. So it depends on where they are in the peninsula, and the prey changes a lot.
Are they considered to be helpful in reducing populations of any other species, like wild boar, for example?
Yeah, so that is something that really goes around a lot. Is missed a bit because it hasn't been really studied.
Mm-hmm.
That they could potentially regulate problems in I don't know, in rodeos. Sometimes they have this worm that gets and kills them, and that's or we have a big problem with the wild boar population that is everywhere, and we have them in the cities. So a lot of people think wolves could regulate those species, but it hasn't really been studied. So I would not say it is true.
It could hopefully be something in the future, because that's a lot of what's happening. I'm sure you heard about some of the North American regulating that wolves have done with elk and deer and bison to a degree. I don't know if they regulate bison populations, but it could be something studied in the future over there to, I guess, regulate that wild boar population. Because I know boars and wild pigs in the States, in North America, have the same thing. Is once they get moving, they populate at a very fast rate, and they can really take a toll on the natural landscape.
And they're not native here, so that's plays.
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind that they eat a lot of different species. They won't be always eating one species to regulate them. They will go for what is in front of them, and they can eat or chase, or it's more our desire of having a predator helping us than what they can do. I mean, they will eat what they have. If it's yeah, so that is, and also you have to add the problem of living in a very humanized landscape. It's not the same to regulate bisons in Yellowstone National Park, where you're going to have people living there and trying to kill them. I know outside the park it's another thing, but inside the park it's very natural. Tourists are more a problem because they are too addicted to wolves. They love them too much. Here it's the contrary. You have to count on the human factor. So they will regulate if they can eat, they will eat, but they won't be. It's not a mathematical thing. I think so.
Yeah, and I did read that overpopulation is, encroaching on wolf habitat, if not already maximum encroached on wolf habitat, and causing habitat degradation and all these things. But I also read that prey decline plays a part in the challenges that face Iberian wolves. But with all of these different animals to eat, how is that possible? What is causing these declines?
I mean, they have a lot of prey to eat, but in some areas, they only have livestock, and that's the big problem. I mean, they mostly have livestock. They have wild boar too. But yeah, so our problem is with coexistence. Our wolves are very resilient, like everywhere, but they also are very persecuted.
Yeah, it seems to be an international issue everywhere, wherever they are. What's the main livestock depredation issue? Is it cattle? Is it sheep? What's the main livestock driver in Spain that is hindered by the wolf population there, or that's affected by the?
So wolves predate on all types of livestock, sheep, goats, and cattle. But the biggest cost is the cattle. So the big problem is cattle depredation because it's more expensive and it's not so easy to gather because they roam in bigger areas. So yeah, cattle is the biggest problem, and European laws are encouraging cattle, free roaming cattle. So yeah, for wolf ecology is not so easy because to avoid attacks in free ranging cattle is not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is there any thought, and I don't know if you've heard about this in North America, is that there's not a stipend, but there's a money pool that's put together by the government if a cattle is taken down by a wolf or a bear or another it's almost a stipend of sorry for your, and they pay you the price of the cattle or the sheep, whatever it is. Is that something that has been talked about in Spain, or is it pretty much not a non-starter in that?
So we have also a European stipend that helps people, but it's only for protected areas because in the 70s, wolves had a huge decrease in their numbers in Spain because people got paid for killing wolves. They were, So after that, Felix Rodriguez de la Fuente, who is a really big divulgational type, he spoke about wolves and made it a game species. So he was partly protected, being a game species. But some areas were locally extinct, and they protected those areas, so you couldn't hunt wolves in those areas. Even game hunting was banned, and you got a stipend for any, because you were in this area where you couldn't hunt them or persecute them. You got the stipend from the European Union. So then the numbers increased.
If we can go back to the audio recording stuff, what do the audio recording devices look like? What kind of sounds can they pick up? I've heard that they can potentially pick up ultrasonic frequencies like bat calls and all these things. Describe just the technology a bit.
Yes, that's right. You can also record bats. It's a different mode, but you can record bats and all type of biodiversity sounds. And it only weighs about 80 grams, so it's really, really tiny. And has 3 batteries, and it's if you put it, we were recording 24 hours to capture all the spontaneous activity, and they lasted around 10 days in a row.
Wow. Did you also have trail cameras set up at the same time in conjunction with the audio device, or it was all audio?
Yeah, it was only audio.
Mm.
And were there any drawbacks? Because I was reading again. I was looking through all the stuff, and I know you accounted for weather, so you put these. Mm-hmm. They're called audio moths, correct?
That's the brand. Yeah. I know there are other low cost devices, but we are working.
Oh, okay, that's the brand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how did you? So I guess how did you account for weather? I know there was, because you're talking about different continents with different weather patterns and snow and wind. I know wind was a huge factor in your research trying to pinpoint certain vocalizations. What were some of the drawbacks and the hurdles you guys had to go over?
So of course wind was a factor that influenced the device from capturing sound. So because whenever the wind was blowing towards the device, we had all the recordings right. We could capture all the vocal activity of the center. But if the wind changed direction, it was not so easy, not so mathematical. So wind was very important. It is obvious that it has to be, kind of studied or tested at least. And rain can be a problem because when it rains on the recorder sometimes or around, and it can also limit the sounds you can see on the spectrogram.
What were you? I know before you were mentioning what you did discover, but was there something that initiated this method of researching that you were hoping to discover, something you were hoping to find, or was it just a general, let's try a new method of observation and see what it yields?
So we were aiming to facilitate monitoring programs, to conserve and help wolf population, you first have to know how many wolves you have or how many cubs you have, right? So we use a method that is, I don't know if you are familiar with, but it's called howling survey.
Yeah.
We've heard of howling surveys.
So it is pretty common for monitoring programs to use it, but it's also a lot of effort, and it can be very frustrating because wolves not always respond. Sometimes they are there, but they won't respond, and you don't have the certainty to say, no, they are there, because that's not scientifically,
It's not accurate.
Oh, that doesn't work? No, they're there.
Now with the devices, we could just leave them there, and we know they will eventually use the communication, and we know the pups, because you have to use it combined with other methods, like collection of stats, transect, camera traps. And then when you have a breeding area or a rendezvous site, you can put some devices up, and you can potentially have also reproduction. You will have pups howling or whining, or
Did you find that the wolves in North America and in Spain were at different octaves at different points in the year, or were they roughly in the same vocal range in terms of communicating with themselves when the pups were born? Did you notice that, like, were the pitches higher or lower for any specific reason, or were they communicating basically on the same wavelength, so to speak?
Yeah. So we didn't measure those things, but I would say it's the same. But it is something all these comparative studies with subspecies and stuff is something we have in mind, but at the moment we have so many data and little budget, so we have to focus on one thing after another. But it's a very interesting question. I would love to.
Was it determined that audio recording is more effective than trail cameras in predicting population size?
Well, we didn't compare those methods, but there are already some papers out that are comparing the efficacy of each method. And it's when you put a audio recorder, you can monitor a bigger area because the camera only shows what it has in front. And the audio recorder will, have a bigger area to monitor. So it probably will increase. And after some papers I've read, they also say the conclusions are it increases the detectability.
Yeah, I don't think you answered this before, but maybe you did. How far away does it pick up a sound?
So we tested the audio modes, and the farthest we could capture chorus events, because solo house were less, traveled less. But chorus house, we had a chorus house up to, we had devices picking up chorus house up to 2 miles.
Wow, that's way far.
That's very far. And that was really surprising.
It's a lot farther than a camera can see.
Crazy. Yeah. But obviously the condition, the weather conditions and the landscape has to help too. Because sometimes some barriers can limit the sound too. If you put them in a slope and you are trying to record sounds outside the slope, you won't get some.
What was your tactic in placing the recorders? Was there a method to the study in how you wanted to make sure you had every possible angle covered? I know certain times you learned through the study that if it was close to a roadway or someplace where there's more human activity, that's going to negate a lot of what you're looking for. So what's the optimal setting for you to be able to monitor everything in the best way possible?
Yeah, so we had a problem there with the International Work Center. There seemed to be some barriers, some acoustic barriers, because we only captured 50% of the vocal activity that was happening in the center outside, and we should have had loads more. So for this particular research, we didn't have it in mind. We didn't thought it was going to affect the data, but it did. And mostly now we try to avoid physical barriers or slopes. We try to put them in, open areas so that you can maximize the sound you capture. We had a National Geographic grant award. Well, I didn't. My colleague Vicente Palacios, he's the leading biologist in this project, and we put also several devices out for the same rendezvous site, so we could avoid wind shifts and possible slopes and problems with the landscape.
It seems like, was there a lot of learning? I assume with all studies, you're going to learn, kind of fly by the seat of your pants in a way as you're studying and figuring out what's going to work out best. What was you probably answered this already, but I'll ask it anyway. Like, what was the thing that you found that was unexpected, that you found something out in all the work that you did, that you went in looking for one thing, but you found out this other piece of data?
Yeah, so we didn't have like super big, we are starting with research, and research is always very long. So you always get big data after a while. You are deep into the research. But so during the time I was in Yellowstone, we captured an interaction, a possible interaction between a horse and a duet of owls. That was, we thought it would be nice to publish as a brief note. We don't have many data on that, but that was very fun to see. So I was analyzing the data from Yellowstone, and suddenly I saw this because we were looking for cows and forest cows, and then it was like, oh, there's an interaction between these two species, and that looked this, and I remember the people there were like, oh, that's nice, we should look into that, and Shannon Barber Mayer was like, she should publish a brief note about that. So, we don't really know. It was a duet. They were probably being territorial towards the wolf, and the wolf was probably juvenile, pup for the season. It probably would be a pup or something, and was kind of playing behavior and mimicking. That was very fun too.
Yeah, I was reading about that too. Is there further research being done about why that was potentially happening, or they're just leaving it at this for now?
So we will leave it at this because there are no harder data for that. I mean, you cannot really investigate further with only the data we have. But of course, if I keep on seeing this type of event, I will think about looking into that again. Yeah.
So I'm curious about what's your personal relationship with wolves, with the species? What makes you interested in them, or what is it about them that draws you to them?
Yeah, their social behavior. They are socially very complex species, carnivores, predators, and that is very fun to study too. And they are similar to us. They have families and kids and friends. So I really enjoy this social complexity in them. But I would rather say I like conservation and animals in general. But
you have all this study, this schoolwork, that education that you've done for ecology and biology and conservation. Excuse me. Is that where your passion lies in the future? In other words, you're doing this acoustic communication now. Is there something in the future that you're looking toward to either continue this work or do something else related to wolves or another species?
So I don't have a species in mind, but I think these things come along. You just study and meet people and try your best, and one day you have a great opportunity and you go this way and then the other way, So I don't really have a species goal in mind. I want to only research this. No, I feel these things really come along.
The one thing I didn't ask before with the study that you all did, were you able to pick out specific wolves just based on their communication? Were you able to tell, or was it more based on age, that this was an adult wolf as compared to a yearling, as compared to a pup? Or were you able to single out certain packs or certain individuals?
So with wild wolves, it is very difficult to individually distinguish wolves, because sometimes wolves are there, sometimes they are hunting. You don't know if it's the same wolf all the time. To study something like that, you need to have them in captivity, and even in captivity, there are some different factors you have to investigate, and it's very difficult to get enough data to make it significant. I will publish my master's thesis work. It has been accepted already, and it is about individual use, but I only studied how individual behaviors affect the core results. and I had to film the wolves, know the wolves, know who was doing one vocal type, when he was doing it, how much time, it's a lot of effort, and it might not give a lot of results. So I don't think eventually people are doing things to find individual keys, but for wolves, it's not potential to help for the methodology or conservation. I hope nobody gets angry with this. Yeah.
No, it's always an ever evolving thing with research and studies, is that you want to have an ultimate goal, I imagine, for everything that you do. And a lot of the biologists and scientists that we've spoken to, it's the same thing. They hope that the work that they're doing gets towards the larger goal of preservation and conservation and education. And I think this is on the way, because I was like I said, I was really enthralled in reading this last night and understanding the amount of work that goes into it, and just you don't know what you're going to get. And it was just interesting to read this and talk to you about it, because I haven't read a study. I mean, I probably could go back, but I haven't seen one. What I'm trying to remember, there was a question I had and now it flew out of my head. Woohoo!
It's also a lot of people working, a lot of people, effort, money, and I'm only the technician, and I do data, and I write what I can, and I participate because I'm starting. But all the other people have also a lot of work in this researchers, and it's just a little, sand in.
But you're a part of that pack. How many other individuals are working with you or worked with you on all this research?
So I usually work with Vicente Palacios, who supervised my master's thesis. And he has been working for over 20 years with wolf research. His PhD is on wolf acoustic communication too. He was the leading biologist in the National Geographic Award round. In the project we were doing with different countries, India, Spain, and the US, where I was the tech in Yellowstone National Park, and Shannon Barber Mayer was also part of it in Ely, Minnesota. And Bilal Habib, I don't know if you know the researcher, he's an Indian researcher. He works with tigers and does, and in less amount, but I think he is very interested in wolf research. He also does this vocal communication research. So they were all involved. Also, Daniel Staller from Yellowstone.
Yep, Dan Staller, yep.
Mm-hmm.
They were all part of it.
What was the best part of this for you? Was it going to Yellowstone? Was it studying in Spain? What was the event or something that really stuck out in your mind while doing this research and taking this on?
Of course, going to Yellowstone was a great experience. Meeting all these super senior and brilliant minds like Douglas Smith, Shannon Barber Mayer, Vicente Palacios, that was also a very great experience.
How much time did you spend in Yellowstone, and what was the, I mean, how long were you there? Were you in the winter? I can't remember if you were in the winter. Did you get to see any wolf kills or any pups? What was the time frame when you?
I spent 2 months in Yellowstone.
Oh wow!
Yeah. for 1 month, I was in Cody. I had to travel 2.5 hours in the morning and 2.5 hours back in the afternoon. Yeah.
That's the West for you. Everything's far away.
Yeah. And it was, so I arrived at Denver in August. And the 1st of October, I went back. No, I went to Reno to a conference and then traveled back.
Wow, what a trip.
And that is, you've been all over. This is great.
Yeah. So we were planning on going to India too. We wanted to see the research area with Bilal because he came to Spain. He gave a little conference. And then we said, okay, we go to India and you show us I wanted to go to India and see the Indian wolves and the does and tigers and everything. But just one day before I was leaving, the pandemic started.
Are you going to have plans to go? Is there plans to go to India in the future? Now that if things start to settle down, and will you be on that trip?
I would love that, yeah. But I'm not sure how the pandemic is going to work with that.
What about back here? What about back to America?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I would love to go to America again. I actually tried to do a PhD program there, but finally I decided to do it here.
And then when you get, and by the way, congratulations that your thesis was accepted. So that's huge.
Yeah.
What's the end game for you? Is it to, because you studied in Spain, you're a fan of America, you want to go to India. Do you want to be a traveler that studies all over? Do you want to stay in a certain area? Where do you think you want to take yourself?
Again, I'm not sure about it. I would really enjoy a time in the States because you have long-term projects that I really would like to be part of, and you have a lot of good work and fauna and wildlife and everything I would like to be part of for a while. So that would be one goal.
I'm going to ask you my last question, and then I want to get promote, or if whatever we can do to know when the full paper is coming out. I'll point people to these articles as well. But my last question for you, Barbara, is when you hear the word wolf, what is the thing that comes to your mind?
Conflict. I'm sorry, but yeah.
No, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's just the way it is, I guess, with this species. I thought that's not true. I lied. I have one more question. What do you think in your mind, because you're the first one internationally that we've spoken to, what's the main focus of why, besides cattle depredation or livestock depredation, what is the overall feeling about the species in Spain or even in Europe, if you have that much of a wide reach of why wolves are either loved or despised in either direction?
Yeah. So as I told you before, we have always lived very close to the wolves here. And it has been a conflict for centuries. We were very rural for a lot of time, and wolves were a problem. We couldn't feed our families because we had a lot of trouble with wolves. So that is in the mentalities of European people. And here, the Catholic Church and religions also have this demon figure of the wolf, the bad wolf, and all the tales about the bad wolf that eats you and that will hunt you. And that's the thing that rural people believe for centuries. So it's really inside the people. And I would say that is very difficult to erase because it has been there for so. But it's so dismissed. And the other part is this new love for wolves. And that's more a city thing. So they don't live with the wolves and they don't have problems with the wolves. And obviously the wolf is a beautiful animal. They live in community, they are families, they have pets, they are like us. So because they don't have trouble with the wolves, they do kind of paint it in paint, you know. They see this beautiful story of the wolf. And that's, I imagine it's all over the world because love and hate everywhere.
Do you find yourself in doing this research that you're doing in the middle of any of these conflicts and trying to swing people one way or the other, or are you just strictly focused on your work, the research, and letting the information say what it does?
I would love to be so in the neutral area, but you can't because people see biologists always from you know, they imagine you are on one part on the other because the conflict has only two parts. We biologists normally try to be in the middle because we only want to see the data and say, okay, we have so many wolves and we can do this and this depending on what you want to do. I mean, I'm obviously more pro-wolf, but the data don't lie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and everyone that most of the individuals that we've spoken with that are on the scientific community feel, I think, the same way, is that I find the majority are pro-wolf, but they really want to be in the middle and really just give the information and the data and let it speak for itself. And
I mean, we would love that the data help our point of view, you know. But if you are a scientist, you can't lie about the data. So here in Spain, a lot of people say, now the world is in extinction, and that's a lie. The world is in expansion in Europe and in Spain especially. So, but when we talk to the city people, they say, you're a liar because you work for the government. And when we talk to the farm, to the livestock owners, they say, oh, you want to put the wolf in my backyard. And we're like, no, just the data. So we really want to be neutral, but it won't happen like this.
That's fascinating that it's because we've only spoken to mostly North American biologists and studies. So to get confirmation, I guess, that this is a worldwide issue, at least also a European issue too, and these lines are drawn everywhere, is, I guess it's confirmation then that it's just the way it goes, but it's not just us. And yeah, and that you're doing the best that you can to, like you say, just do your research and be a voice of reason in a way. At least it seems that way.
Yeah, I think the scientists just hope their data can help for future problems or to solve problems, or at least most of us. And but always we are living, so animals are living amongst us, so there will always be a conflict. And we can't avoid social issues.
No, yeah. There's conflict between us, between each other. Why wouldn't there be conflict between others?
If you were to have if you were to look at it through a looking glass for yourself, what do you see as the optimal end game with, we'll just stick with wolves for the moment, but for wolves and human coexistence in general? What would you would be the optimal future that you see?
I don't know what I mean, I can say I would like to see, I just like to see a little bit of coexistence, real coexistence, you know. And that is very difficult to manage because worlds are very different in different parts of the landscape and countries, and they adapt to different situations greatly. So you will have very unique situations, and for unique situations, you need unique problem solving. I don't know if I made myself.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to address a problem that has no big solution. It's more a personal solution. You know, for each case, you will have different solutions. I would like people to understand it is it's also a very social problem, not a problem of the existence of a species or something. It's really, sometimes rural communities are very forgotten, and then the wolf comes and is troubling them, and then it's just more social problems, economical problems, you know. It's not only the wolf.
No, you're preaching to the choir, and that's a great point. It's a fantastic point that we are dealing with a lot of social issues between ourselves as a species, and that unfortunately we label certain animals as the problem when really we have a lot of problems coexisting with ourselves. I think Stephen, you said that earlier, probably a half hour ago.
I mean, I think I would like people in the future, or at least someday, to see it also a matter of understanding the other problems, to be empathetic towards others.
Yeah, different ways of living.
And that would really calm down conflict.
Yeah, I definitely have the hindsight to have. I lived in California for years, in the city, and now I live on a farm in another Western state. And it's just increasingly obvious that the issues we have are about not being sympathetic to other people's lives and the challenges that other people live in other places. And it's just what we don't know, we tend to attack for some reason. And I'm not sure why that is, but it seems like what we don't know about, our default position is to see it negatively because we don't know what it's about. And I can't quite figure out why that is, but it just becomes more obvious the more places you go that, you know, when you don't know how other people live, you tend to view it as, you know, you tend to view it negatively. And I'm not sure why that's the case, but.
Yeah, prejudice and the poor, I don't know.
Yeah. Is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we just gotta keep, you know, trucking forward, and we just have to stay neutral as best we can and really try and hear both sides, which I think we're trying to do, and clearly, you know, Barbara, you're doing also in a different way,
or at least in every conversation you have, just attempting to find common ground, no matter what it's about, is honestly, you know, a skill that's sorely lacking right now. So if we keep trying to do that, we're doing something that isn't being done very often, and that's, you know.
Yeah, common ground is the word.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is great. We did an hour, by the way, Barbara. So
yeah, sorry I don't did not answer the questions. Yeah.
No, you did.
No,
you did.
No, you did. You did fantastic. Are you kidding? You did fantastic. Before we stop, I want to ask, when is the full research paper coming out? Where can people find more work that you've worked on, that you've published? Anywhere that they can see the work that you're doing and that you have done already.
Yeah. So we have published. I have only a few papers published, and only two in my name, like a first author. So But I mean, you can Google in Google Scholar. You have all. I mean, I imagine you know that you go to Google Scholar and you can put keywords in wolves, acoustic communication, and you'll probably see some of the papers, or all of them. I mean, they are all there.
Okay.
Yeah. You also can hear the recording from the owl and the wolf.
Oh, where's
So
that?
yeah, you can find it in the. I can send you a link later.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
in
I'm gonna hear
the.
that.
Yeah. I will send you a link to it. It's in the
Okay,
Cornell
great.
Lab.
I wonder if we can
The
put
Cornell
that
Lab?
in the
Cornell.
podcast description, John.
No, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone who's listening, I'm going to put the link for that when Barbara sends that to us, so you guys can hear that interaction, because I definitely want to hear that too. Yeah. I mean, Barbara, Marty, this has been fantastic. Thank you for staying up and and dealing with the time zones. And listen, if you're ever back in the States and you're in California, you have an open invitation to come to Wolf Connection. So you really want to see wolves up close. We got a pack of them, 33 right now, and
Wow.
expanding. So if
Take
you're
your
ever
word.
if you're ever in California and listen, hey, just ask for me and we'll make it happen. So we'd love to show you around and you can see our dens and all these beautiful creatures. So everyone, Barbara, Marty, thanks again. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure, and we'll have all the information in the description for all you folks out there to check her out. So how's to y'all out there, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the donate tab, and find out more information.